Today, I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 8 NFL Draftkings main slate. Like I always do here with these videos, I'm going to kick it off with a couple of my favorite game stacks, and then we'll dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive right into this. And the first game stack that I like here this weekend is that game between the Eagles and Commanders. Stacking up the Eagles side here with Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, and then running it back with Terry McLaurin. Now, I have no problem playing A.J. Brown in this stack here, but he is projected to be one of the more popular wide receivers here in Week 8, whereas Devontae Smith has had a projected ownership of 1.6%. I know he hasn't been as great as A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's been on an absolute tear, but we do know the upside talent that Devontae Smith presents as well, so I like going to him here considering the ownership projections. And this matchup is just great for the Eagles passing game in general, as the Commanders have struggled against the pass, ranking 27th overall in defensive pass DVOA this year, and the Eagles haven't necessarily been great against the pass either, kind of mid-pack if you will, ranking 17th overall in defensive pass DVOA, and I like running it back there with Terry McLaurin, not only considering his price, but the upside he presents as well. He's a guy that could go for 20, 25 plus Draftkings points. And then the other game stack that I like here this week is that game between the Bengals and 49ers. Now, we did get word here today that Brock Purdy has cleared concussion protocol. Really doesn't change things too much for me on the 49ers side of things. Still love going to Christian McCaffrey here, but I like attacking the Bengals passing game with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Irv Smith. Now, Irv Smith hasn't necessarily been a huge factor in this offense so far this year, but I did see their offensive coordinator talk during the bye week and said how they wanted to get him more involved. Plus, he's just super cheap here at $2,800, so he really doesn't need much to meet value. Kind of opens up some salary throughout the rest of your lineup. The implied total here for this game is 44.5 points. That's the fifth most on the main slate. And coming off of this bye here for the Bengals, Joe Burrow should be the healthiest we've seen him all season long. I know beat reporters love to be optimistic in general, but word is that he's looked good at practice here this week. And again, Christian McCaffrey, he's really in a good spot most weeks, but this Bengals defense has really struggled against the run this year, ranking 27th overall in rush defensive DVOA. Plus, we all know the upside that CMC has in the passing game as well. Now, folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Every like, comment, and sub here on this channel truly does go a long way through the YouTube algorithm. You guys have been awesome so far this year. Help us out if you can here again today, and let's dive into these individual plays. Now, one quarterback I don't mind here this week is Dak Prescott, but I do want to mention that I love Lamar Jackson, think Patrick Mahomes is in a great spot as well. They're obviously the elite quarterbacks that we have on this slate. Talked about them a little bit more in my cash plays video yesterday, so go check that out if you haven't done so yet. But if I'm looking for a kind of a high-risk, high-reward tournament play here, I like Dak Prescott, and honestly, I kind of like this game as well between the Rams and Cowboys. I think we could stack this one up a little bit. I'll talk about that a little bit more once we get into the wide receiver and tight end plays here. But Dak Prescott, $6,100 on DraftKings this week. We would need 24.4 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. Part of the reason I like this game here is because it's being played indoors here. That becomes more of a factor as the season progresses. And this one has some high scoring upside. The implied total right now is 45.5 points. That's the third most on the main slate. Plus, the Cowboys have an implied team total of 26 points. That's the fourth most. This Rams defense has been very mediocre against the pass this year, ranking 20th overall in defensive pass DVOA. And Dak has some nice stacking options as well this week. I'll talk about those here in just a couple of minutes. But before we get into those wide receivers and tight ends, let's talk a couple of running backs. Now, same thing here. Talked about a bunch of running backs in my cash plays video yesterday that will absolutely be in my tournament consideration as well. Breece Hall is expected to be super popular here this week, but rightfully so in a good matchup against the Giants. I broke all that down in that video, but one guy that I like in tournaments here this week is Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. He's priced at $6,200 in a matchup at home against the New Orleans Saints. That is certainly a tough matchup, but this might be the cheapest we get Jonathan Taylor going forward. We need about 25 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value at that price, and even though this is a tough matchup, we all know that Taylor is talented enough to get there, and the volume shouldn't be an issue either. year. He saw 21 touches last week, racking up 120 total yards. Yes, Zach Moss is still going to be involved in this offense too, but this number really stuck out to me for Taylor last week. He saw all 6 carries in the red zone. And then a cheaper running back option that I like here this week is Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans, priced at $5,300 in a great matchup on the road against the Carolina Panthers. We need 21.2 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value at this price. Now, the issue here with Dameon Pierce is the Texans could very well split snaps between Pierce and Singletary going forward, but so far this year, Pierce has dominated the touches at the goal line. He actually has a 100% rate there, so that role shouldn't change for him, and considering the matchup here against Carolina, who ranks dead last in defensive DVOA, I do like him in tournaments at this price. Now, diving into a few wide receivers that I like in tournaments this week, let's go back to this game here between the Cowboys and Rams. Like I said, I do think we can stack this one up. Cooper Kupp here of the Los Angeles Rams, $9,000 this week, where we would need 36 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. Yeah, he's certainly expensive at this price, but after a subpar performance last week, his ownership is only projected around 7% here, far less than guys like Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill, so we can kind of get one of those elite receivers at really low ownership. And look, his numbers are still great, we know this. 30% target share, 42% air yard share, and a 38% first read share. Plus, again, this time of year, I do like when teams play indoors. There's a lot more shootout potential in my opinion. But hey, let's not get away from this game quite yet. Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb here of the Dallas Cowboys, priced at $7,600 this week, where we would need 30.4 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. His numbers aren't quite as good as Cooper Kupp's, but still really solid. 22% target share, 28% air yard share, and a 24% first read share. Plus, this Rams defense has really struggled against slot wide receivers this year, allowing the 2nd most receiving yards and 7th most receptions to the position, and Lamb just so happens to play in the slot about 68% of the time, and he's going to be low owned as well compared to his peers. And then for a 3rd straight week, I'm going to highlight Drake London here of the Atlanta Falcons, priced at $5,100. Price didn't change from last week, and this is a great matchup here against the Tennessee Titans. At this price here for starters, we need 20.5 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value, and look at his numbers. These aren't bad at all. 23% target share, 30% air yard share, 29% first read share in his last 6 games. He's also seen 10 red zone targets this year. That's the 4th amongst all wide receivers in the NFL. And again, just a great matchup here against this Tennessee defense, who ranks 26th overall in defensive pass DVOA. That secondary for the Titans has really been one of the worst now for about 2 straight years. And then I got a couple of tight ends that I like here this week. First being Mark Andrews. If I want to spend up here, I think he's still too cheap at $6,400 considering the matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. At this price, we need 25.6 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value. A guy who's got a 22% target share, 21% air yard share, and a 22% first read share. Not bad at all considering his position. He's basically the wide receiver number 1 or 2 if you consider Zay Flowers the wide receiver 1 now, but basically those 2 are receiving a bulk of the work from Lamar Jackson. And this Cardinals defense has really struggled against tight ends over the last few seasons. That has not changed this year either, allowing the 6th highest yards per reception to tight ends and ranking 31st overall in defensive pass DVOA. And then a cheaper tight end that I like here this week is Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. He's only $3,600 this week, and again, going back to that game between them and the Rams, like stacking this one up a little bit, we would need 14.4 DraftKings points in order for him to hit 4x value, and while he's only had a 14% target share, certainly not bad considering the price, but what's more important in my opinion is he leads all tight ends in the NFL in red zone targets this year with 11. There should be some touchdown positive regression coming his way, and this Rams defense has not been great against tight ends this year, allowing the highest yards per reception and the 6th most receiving yards to the position. And as always, going to wrap up this video here talking a couple of defenses. First one that I like here in tournaments this week is the Seattle Seahawks, priced at $3,400 in a matchup at home against the Cleveland Browns. We need 13.6 DraftKings points in order for them to hit 4x value, and I love the matchup considering that PJ Walker will be starting at quarterback for the Browns. In the 2 games that he's played this year, he has 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 1 fumble, and the Seattle defense should be able to create pressure against them. They rank 12th in the NFL right now in the highest pressure rate, while the Browns offensive line has allowed allowed the 5th highest pressure rate. And then a slightly cheaper defense here in the Pittsburgh Steelers, $2,900 on DraftKings this week in a matchup at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We need 11.6 DraftKings points in order for them to hit 4x value. Now, the Steelers have kind of been up and down so far this year, but in their last 2 home games, they forced 7 turnovers while racking up 10 sacks. Always playing in Pittsburgh is a better situation for the Steelers, especially their defense. And after kind of getting throttled by the Houston Texans a few weeks ago, they've only allowed just 27 points here in their last 2 games to the Los Angeles Rams and the Baltimore Ravens, so they're playing a little better here over the past couple of weeks. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, everyone. Let's win some money on this Week 8 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.